actually a well-known specialist in mathematical finance and some other topics in mathematics. So he will tell us about different financial time series. And so it's very nice to see you, Nick, here at the Middlesex University Tower Center. So please welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much, Sergey. Thank you for having me, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen. Thank you for having me, gentlemen. It's nice to be back here. Sergey and I were colleagues once at the University of Brunel in Uxbridge. And then in '03, I left to go to Sheffield, from whence I went to Imperial, and Sergey came here. Modelling and prediction of financial time series. Now, of course, there are several aspects to this. There's the modelling, there's the prediction, there's the financial, and there's the time series. Now, I'm really a straight probabilist by trade. What I do is probability. And around 1973, that Shell's theory started up. In a few years, it became very clear that this was going to change the world of anybody specializing in probability. What was one to do? Get on the bandwagon or stay off it? And I stayed off. I didn't want to know about all this financial stuff. My sympathy was and is with the real economy, people out there who make things and provide a service, rather than people who specialize in little pieces of paper or electronic equivalent thereof. So I wasn't going to touch it with a barge pole. Then, in 1995, I was turning 50 at the time, a long time ago now, and I went from being a professor of mathematics at Royal Holloway College, Egham, Surrey, it's in the University of London, which is strange because Egham's a long way from London, but that's how it is. And I went to being a professor of statistics in Birkbeck, which is really the night school of the University of London. And I was given a topics course to teach for the MSc in applied statistics. And there was a request from the class. Most of them were city traders who wore pinstripe suits and spent all day trading. There was a theory, and they didn't know it, but the other guys did know it. So they asked me to teach them their topics course. Now, you know what they say, gentlemen? A drowning man has his whole life flash before him when he goes down for the third and last time. Now, that's how it felt. I could have just said, get lost. I don't do that stuff. I'm making things, providing real services personally. But, don't know how many of you are fathers, I'm a father. When a kid asks dad for something, it takes a real toughie to say, get lost, it's against my principles. So I said yes, so I started learning mathematical finance and fell in love with it because mathematically it's very interesting. It really is. Okay. Well, let me scroll a little. Sources. Now, the risk I take here is looking like a megalomaniac. Now, form your own judgment, gentlemen. I assure you with hand on heart, I am not a megalomaniac. The reason that most of the sources I'm mentioning here have my name on is because there's a talk's worth just on this, and one has to select, and one could get an entire course on modelling and prediction of financial time series. And I haven't got that much time, so without further ado, these are the principal sources that I should be speaking to. BFK is myself with my friend and former colleague, Ruben Kiesel, now of the University of Essen in Germany, John Fry, a former student of mine from Sheffield, now friend and colleague, and we wrote a paper called Multivariate Elliptic Processes, and I realized with horror that although I've used, I touch type and I type this myself and I've used these slides before, but to notice that there are 3 L's of elliptic, so please excuse me. Multivariate elliptic processes, statistica mathematica. This dates back to a talk I gave at Urandum in Eindhoven, in the Netherlands. Then B1. Seger's theorem and its probabilistic descendants. Now, I don't know whether we have any Hungarians present. Is there anybody here who either is Hungarian or knows the Hungarian language?
Who's Hungarian?
No.
We have a Hungarian postdoc, but he's not here now.
Very good. This should be a double vertical accent. And when Seger wrote his famous book on orthogonal polynomials, which we'll mention later, he used the umlaut because Western keyboards typically have an umlaut, because Goethe uses an OE, but try to think of the most famous German family name that's always written with an O. Schrödinger, perfect, yes, Schrödinger, good. But it's got double vertical accent. Seger's theorem and its probabilistic descendants. Probability surveys, by the way, is online and it's free, and it's very good. So if you want to check out the background here, just Google probability surveys and scroll through, and it's all there for taking. And that is the nickname take on some stuff we will talk about later in one dimension. Now, Jim, what dimension do we like to work in? I am a minimalist at heart. The minimalist motto, gentlemen, is I'm going some fun here.
0 dimension.
Nice try. Nice try. I like it. It has a charm of its own. But it's not actually correct. The minimalist's motto is less is more. Now that I've reminded you, are any of you prepared to admit having heard that said before? Less is more. Less really isn't. I come from the North of England where real men don't say much. Speak hands for me, that's my favourite line in Shakespeare. It's said by Cassidy, and people are going down on bended knees and begging Julius Caesar for this and that. He says, I am constant as the northern star, therefore I spurn thee sinner. He goes like this. Casca just, he's had it up to here, he can't stand it anymore. Whips out his dagger, says, speak hands for me, walks across. Minimalism. Marvelous. What dimensionality should we work in? Now, one dimension has the glorious advantage of being simplicity. Of course, zero-dimensional, yes, but zero-dimensional stuff, there isn't enough stuff there, in some sense. One dimension there is. Many dimensions now, for years and years and years, I couldn't be bothered with many dimensional mathematics because I thought to myself, there's enough hard stuff in one dimension to see me out. Infinite dimensional stuff, yes, that's lovely, but that's functional analysis. And many dimensional stuff, that's just window dressing. It's just one dimensional stuff dressed up with extra algebraic complications. Can't be bothered. Well, how wrong can you be? Many dimensional mathematics is lovely, it's wonderful, it's marvelous, and I learned that as a professor of statistics having to teach multivariate analysis and statistics. So I had to learn it. Okay, I fell in love with it, it's marvelous. So this is the big and take in one dimension, this is the big and take. Many dimensions. This, I'm recycling the title here, is the write-up of a talk I gave in the University of Thessaloniki in Greece some years ago, in a very delightful coastal resort. my paper with my friend and colleague Balanisari, at Imperial, aspects of prediction. Joe applied probability volume 51A, that's the celebration volume, because the journal has lasted 50 years. And then NH Newman, Rudy and Kiesel, look at that. That's the second time. How pathetic. A closing bracket without an opening bracket. I don't know where that came from. Why is my proofreading? Risk neutral valuation, pricing and hedging of financial derivatives, which we wrote, and when Rudy and I wrote the first edition, there weren't any books on mathematical finance. hardly. And so we had to write our own. Okay, well I've got my time cut out just talking to the sources mentioned, so let me pass on. The first thing I want to talk about is semi-parametric models. Now, I don't know how many of you teach statistics. For that matter, I don't know how many of you learn statistics. It's not my business. Statistics comes in two broad flavors. There is statistics where you have a model, and the first and most important thing to remember about models is all models are wrong, some models are useful. Saying due to the British statistician George Box, who spent most of his long, distinguished career in the US, and must be in his 90s now. And if you don't choose a model, which is parametric, the way the English use the term anyway, you're working non-parametric. And non-parametric statistics is very useful stuff, I love it. And then there are situations where you split the difference and have a model that splits into two bits, a parametric bit and a non-parametric bit. And I happen to be very interested in semi-parametric statistics, both from a theoretical point of view and from a practical point of view, because of what one can do with it. Right, so I'd like you to imagine that we have a stochastic process called S for stock price, by the way, in discrete time t. We'll come back later and talk about continuous time, but what the hell, I can't resist it. Discrete time, continuous time. Is time discrete or continuous?
Infinitely divisible.
I'm sorry?
Infinitely divisible.
Infinitely divisible, yes, I will accept that, but
Therefore continuous.
and therefore continuous. Okay, well, let me return to this later. Let me leave this interesting and slightly provocative answer to my admittedly slightly provocative question hanging in here. So at the moment we're in discrete time. And we've got a D vector, D for dimensionality, of discounted prices, S sub I of risky assets. Now, D for dimension. D is the dimensionality of our portfolio of stock. Now, usually in mathematical finance, when one uses the term portfolio, one has in mind a disposition of available money between various ways in which one can choose to invest. You can have money in the bank, and we take the view in this talk that money in the bank is riskless. I have to make an effort here to stop laughing out loud. Money in the bank is riskless. How many of you gentlemen remember Northern Rock?
I have one more paradox in my opinion.
Northern Rock, money in the bank is riskless. Pull the other.
Any Icelandic bank.
Yes.
Any Russian bank before they
Or now, Russian bank now.
What we have banks for, gentlemen, we can come back and talk about that later. Right. A D vector, everything else is overtly risky. It's risky because we invest in stock in companies, the limited liability company. One of the principal props of modern capitalism. Why do we have limited liability? Because before limited liability, if you were engaging in a business transaction and somebody let you down, so you didn't have enough money to complete the transaction, well, you were in default. And maybe the person you were dealing with, your innocent counterparty, he was committed up the hill because he trusted you, and then you welched on your commitment, and he lost a whole pile of money, and he could sue you for his losses. And it was a big deal, it went wrong, through no fault of your own, because you were let down by a counterparty, but the counterparty escaped. He went to the top of a tall building and took a long walk. So that's the end of the counterparty. The buck now stops with you. And somebody is after you for a whole pile of money, and he comes after you. Right. That's more money than you've got. So what does he do? He hauls you in front of the court and has you forced into bankruptcy. They sell the house around your head, etc., etc., etc. Wife and small children thrown out on the street. It's raining. Nasty stuff.
Of course it's raining.
That's the limited liability company. The only escape from this is to limit one's liability to one's actual investment. So if you're a businessman, you have a roof over your head and you want to start a business, you make an investment in this company. If the company goes bust, and they come after you to try to force you to sell your house, you can say, get lost. This is my house. I'm still alive. The company that I founded and ran is dead now. Well, death cancels all. Now, good afternoon. Say goodbye. So, these risky assets, they may become worthless, and they will if companies become bankrupt. Now, D should be quite large, and we'll come back, very shortly actually, and talk about how large D should be.
It's a bit off topic, sorry.
So,
The price is always assumed to be positive.
all zero. If a company goes bankrupt, the stock becomes worthless.
Yeah, but I was also thinking it could be a situation that I actually want to get rid of assets so much that I'm ready to pay someone to take it from me.
How
So
many
it's
of
price.
you drive, Jen? Once upon a time, I inherited a lovely car from my father. It was a Hilton Mix. It was beautiful. And I loved it to bits, and I drove it for many years. But you know how it is with cars, the sills eventually start going, the chassis, these long bits underneath the doors at the side. And the last time I had an MOT, the mechanic said to me, it's just got through this time, it won't get through next time, the sills are gone. So the following year, I took it back, and I said, look, your garage mechanic says it's a perfectly good car, it won't get through the MOT, but give it to one of your lads, so you can sort of patch it up, I'm sure. And he laughed, and he said, more or less, nice try, pull the other one. You can leave it with us, but we'll have to get rid of it. And nobody does anything for nothing, it's going to cost us a bit, so we'll take it off your hands for £20. And I thought to myself, £20? I've got to give somebody £20 to take this lovely car off my hands. No. Then I thought to myself, oh, come on, don't be silly. So I ended up by paying them to get rid of my car. How much do you know about Magnox power stations? They cost a hell of a lot of money to build. They had a useful life. At the end of the useful life, they take a hell of a lot of money to decommission. So that is an asset whose real value becomes negative. It can happen. My old car, Magnox power stations, but in this tool, for simplicity, the value of an asset is positive if the company is solvent and zero if the company is insolvent. Discount. Remember, gentlemen, when you were first taught interest, when you were kids, simple interest and compound interest. Then later on, when you learned calculus, you learned the exponential function. And once you know about exponentials, then discounting becomes more natural. The cash value of a fixed asset has a tendency to inflate exponentially over time. Or, to put it the other way around, the real value of a fixed unit of cash has a tendency to deflate exponentially over time. That's saying the same thing in different words. So, when you're doing mathematical finance, as you may well know already, the first thing to do is to discount everything inside, so as to work in terms of real prices rather than non-real prices. Now, why should we do that? Two different reasons. First of all, to achieve stationarity. Stationarity simply means what it sounds like, that things are the same as time progresses, in some sense. Distributions don't change it. And secondly, that you can put mathematical finance, at least at the level of the first course, Black-Scholes theory, for example, which I teach at the moment, discount everything in sight and take conditional expectations under the equivalent martingale measure. EMM for equivalent martingale measure, also known as the risk-neutral measure. And lurking in the background is the idea of risk-neutral valuation, a phrase I love so much that Rudy McKeesel and I took it as the title of our book, which I mentioned previously. Now, markets in 1952. Think back, gentlemen, to when you just written your PhD thesis and how proud of you. I'm not an envious man, but Harry Markowitz, who's still alive, did something that I will admit to envy. He wrote a PhD thesis in 1952, which is so good that it is still being cited as part of a subject. I wrote my PhD thesis in 1969. Nobody cites it anymore. I haven't looked at it myself for decades. And if any of you have looked at your thesis for the last 20 years, well, probably for sentimental rather than technical reasons. Markowitz's thesis gave the world two ideas which are so natural that one has to make an effort to realize that people didn't always know them, but they didn't. Idea one, think of risk, which is summarized by the covariance matrix sigma, and return, which is summarized by the mean vector mu. I'm missing a closing bracket there. Gosh, my proofreading is just terrible. Together and not separately, and secondly, diversify. Hold a large number, D, of assets, so the dimensionality that we've mentioned already is going to be large, with lots of negative correlation. Why negative correlation? Because everything changes over time. And when you are thinking of investing in the stock market, well, I mean, pause here, hollow laughter. This is an academic audience. We academics haven't got any money to invest in the stock market. But I happen to be a member of the university's superannuation scheme, USS. You will be too, or some equivalent body. And some guy is sitting in an office in Liverpool investing the income stream with our pension contributions month on month. And what's he going to do with it? Stick it all in cash? He's going to stick some of it in cash. The rest of it he will diversify as he sees fit. He's a stock maker by profession. I'm a theorem prover by profession. They're rather different. But in broad outline, it goes like this. Take the economy, the real economy. I'm a real economy. Blow this artificial finance stuff. The real economy. It's traditionally divided into order of a dozen industrial sectors. Manufacturing, retail, tourism, so on and so forth. Property, etc. And within each sector, if you have holdings in all 12 sectors, you'll diversify the 12 sectors, And within each sector, which firms do you invest in? Well, get hold of a list of the FTSE 100 and go down and pick 4 companies that take your fancy in manufacturing, and then keep going until you've got 4 or 5 companies per sector, and that'll get you up to 50 or 60. So that would be a suitably large number. Lots of negative correlation. When things change, some things go up, some things go down. When you've got negative correlation, the point is that your holdings that go down, and give you losses, will be counterbalanced by holdings that go up because of the negative correlation. If things are negatively correlated, they tend to go up and down at the same time, rather than both down at the same time, or both up at the same time. Okay, so that's markets in a nutshell. So any model for asset classes means a vector mu, d vector mu, and a d by d covariance matrix sigma, which is symmetric and positive definite. And we think of that as the parametric component of the model. And we're going to restrict to the case where sigma is actually positive definite. It's bound to be non-negative definite, but it might not be invertible, so we stick to the nice case. In the nice case, sigma has a matrix square root, which we can invert, and if we go from S to X, we standardize our vector of prices S into a vector of standardized prices X, which has mean, vector 0, and covariance matrix in the case. That's just for convenience. Right. Multivariate elliptic processes, or MEP. Now let's consider the special case where X that we just introduced is spherically symmetric. Then we can reduce to the quadratic form, Q for quadratic, which is the length of the vector x squared, or if you prefer, x transpose, that's transpose times x, rho times common scalar, or spelled out in terms of S is mu and sigma, it's that quadratic form there, which is in what is called the elliptical family. Now, whole books have been written about elliptical families. And the standard work on the subject is by 3 people, Fang, Cox, Sam Cox, and one Chinese person, one American Jew, and one Vietnamese person, presumably. Sam Cox is a very interesting in the elliptical family. And then, if we look at the standardized version of X, because it's in the elliptical family, it has a representation in the form of A, or sigma to the half times U, where, now the Cholesky decomposition basically just talks about matrix square roots in the case where these exist. So here, this A is that sigma to the half, the usual matrix square root of the positive definite matrix U. U is Brownian motion on the d-dimensional sphere. Now, d could very well be of the order of 50 or 60, but d might be of the order of 500 or 600. And handling matrices, when did you last handle by hand a matrix of order 5 or 6? I can remember having to handle matrices that big as a student by hand, and I thought that was cruel. But at a Norton, you couldn't have done it by hand and add 2 noughts on. Again, things are starting to blow up in our face. The point here is that the burden of dimensionality is carried by this Brownian motion of the d-sphere. Brownian motion is lovely, it's wonderful, it's marvellous, and spheres are lovely and wonderful and marvellous. Brownian motion on the d-sphere, very, very nice, very interesting.
So how do you get this RT?
Coming on to this. Coming on to it.
Okay.
Good. And R equals RT is called the risk driver, which is one dimensional. Now, how do you get R? You get it from the, this is called, in the language of elliptical families, X equals R A transpose. U is called the stochastic representation. And let's call that SR for short. So I'm afraid, under pressure of time, I'll have to ask you to take my word for it for the purposes of this talk. But if you want background, and there's lots of background and very interesting it is, a book by Fang, Kotz and Ung, whose precise title I've forgotten, but if you just Google Fang plus Kotz plus Ung, you'll get the book straight off. Now then, R is the risk driver. Imagine that you're in the mindset of the person who is investing your pension contributions. Is it a good month? Is it a bad month? In good months, everything tends to look up. In bad months, everything tends to look down. And it varies from month to month because of the state of the ambient economy. This is a one-dimensional stochastic process, and it has the interpretation of being a one-dimensional summary of the randomness driving the economy as a whole. The vector mu and the matrix sigma are specific to the stocks that your guy is choosing to invest your money in on your behalf. So that's specific to his choice of stocks on your behalf. But this stuff tells you about the ambient economy. Now, we're using a one-dimensional representation of the variability in the ambient economy, and that is clearly a grotesque oversimplification. But it's not completely silly. There are things that are one-dimensional proxies for the general state of the economy. For example, the FTSE itself is a one-dimensional proxy for the economy. And so GDP is another different one-dimensional proxy for the economy. And you can track the FTSE over time, or you can track GDP over time. You can see where the economy is confident and on the up. You can see where the economy lacks confidence and is up and down. So that's what I have in mind for R.
So when you look
Yes,
in one-dimensional case, what is R?
well, exactly what I've just said.
Is
Think
it simply one?
two different ones I've just given. One is FTSE, a Financial Times Stock Exchange Index. When the FTSE goes through a new record, it makes the national news, and the Chancellor of the Exchange comes on television, and he makes even less effort than he usually does not to smirk. And smirking all over his fat face, he tries to claim credit because the economy is up. If, on the other hand, FTSE is down,
Labor fault.
right. So that's FTSE. Another is GDP. Now, if GDP breaks a record, this tends to suggest, Mark Carney might come on television and talk about it. Think of whatever is the favourite one-dimensional thing that varies with time and that is informative, at least to some degree, about the real economy.
I would put XT as FTSE 100, and then what is RT?
Currency, for example, or